Hi, welcome to the Researching Greatness podcast. This is your co-host John, and with my co-hosts Joe and Brian. We're going to do a short episode today, really getting into some books we've been reading, a couple key takeaways, and some insight and thoughts on what's happening in the defense contractor tech community right now. And we're actually jumping in mid-conversation, and we're going to rewind a little bit in our conversation because it was just so good. We figured the audience needed to jump in and hear. Kicking off on a book by Simon Sinek. It starts with Why. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you, let you give a little thought about the book. You've read the whole thing. I am 3 chapters into it right now. What's happening in the book? What's the purpose?
Yeah, so the purpose of Start with Why is that I think he's Mr. Sinek has said this many times, but that a company has to start with their why first, and then you get to the how and the when. I'm sorry, not the when, but the how and the why. I'm just messing this up.
The how and the what.
Yeah. So you don't. So like Apple started with they're different, right? Like that's their whole thing. Like they do things differently. And that's a great example of like they're not a technology company, they're not a computer company, they're a lifestyle company, right? So that's their why. They do things differently. And if you think I'm kind of just like repeating things that are in the book, but if you think back to, what was the difference between Microsoft and Apple when they were having these wars back and forth, when those I'm a Mac, I'm a PC, right? Like what was the difference? And really the difference was that Apple started with a why, why they do things, and you can do these things too. You can be different too. And PC or Microsoft really started with a what, like we have a PC, right? Like you can type in Word, you can make spreadsheets. These are the whats, right? This is not the why. And Microsoft is I think it's really changing. Let's not go this direction, but like to that why. And I think it has everything to do with integration of AI and focusing on end users and experience, right? Because I think they've done a fantastic job of just boosting their company. But let's talk about let's keep going from there. So that's Start with Why. John, back to you.
Yeah, I think where we're going was just what's happening in the defense tech sector right now.
Yeah.
What's happening in large primes that I had made the statement right before we started recording, and maybe we'll jump back to that statement of I think a lot of companies in this space started with a really good why, or there was a really good mission at the time, World War II, World Wars, we need innovation, we need to go save human lives, whatever the why was of the time. And these companies, as they've evolved, transformed, grown, merged, consolidated, some of the larger players in this space, maybe all of them, and I would go to say all of them, have lost their why. And maybe it's now a dollar sign they're focused on. Maybe it's to try to keep people employed. It's a lot more on the what now. And I think a lot of small businesses entering this space look at the bigs and say, okay, how do I do what they do? How do I take a piece of this pie? And have not entered the space with, why do I exist? What is my purpose? Why am I providing something to the warfighter or to the mission? And then circling it back sort of to that Apple conversation, Apple's mission or purpose was not to deliver the iPhone or the best MacBook to the market. Their mission or their why was the best user experience. And that was really it. They've, I think, modified, added some things onto it over the years, but it's really the best user experience when using hardware, software, or services. That's it. And I believe a lot of companies would have a lot of value in going back and searching their souls, their hearts, their leadership teams for what is the why? Why do we exist as a company?
I think it's especially hard in DoD contracting because, I've only been in DoD contracting for the last 3 years, 4 years, something like that. And, before that I was in the Navy, and I didn't have much insight into the contractors that I worked with as far as the companies go. So, my experience with DoD contracting is if you have to be willing to work on disparate projects with disparate technical areas. And so then the why you have to derive the why around this set of work that seems to maybe not even collide with each other, right? Maybe not even give you a good, solid, holistic understanding of what you do. But I guess that's the point. It's not the what. But I do still think that's harder for contractors. If you're a tech company and you're making tech, that's one thing. But if you're a DoD contractor and you supply people, talented people into classified spaces or to develop software for the government, that's like, it's a weird why, right?
Or even solutions. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And like I'm wondering if the contract methods themselves are like make it very difficult to kind of keep that why in place because it's really
Yeah.
the way that government contracting works and they put something out, it's like here's the statement of work, you do the statement of work. And even if it turns out in the first few months of working on it that it's like, oh, this isn't the right solution, we should change this. Well, I don't really have the flexibility to do that because I'm contractually have to do what was written on paper.
Right.
Well, I think
So it like creates.
I think that's almost the challenge in defense contracting and why people lose a lot of contracts. And a lot of the challenges right there is you get these statements of work or these requirements. And I'm not talking for a regular purchase of a laptop or something. Like, yeah, that's a totally different beast. But for a set of services,
Hard solutions.
and people look
Yeah.
at it as a very prescriptive thing, and so they answer the what of that. But a lot of these solicitations actually ask for, give me your approach to doing this thing, which is really, why are you doing it this way? And I think people get lost in, well, I do DevSecOps. Here's my and I'm going to pick on a prime we're working with on JCAP. Go into their JCAP proposal, and they have the what down to the T. I mean, it is what is DevSecOps? Here's what is DevSecOps. Here's how we do DevSecOps. But when I stand back and look at it, I'm like, well, why are you doing this?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They were missing the entire, I actually have to deliver a capability to the warfighter out of this. And the why of my DevSecOps process is to build actually a very specific thing for the warfighter. And they did not articulate the value proposition of their DevSecOps process. And really what was lacking was, in my opinion, why are you doing this? And unfortunately, there was not a single person in the room that could tell me why they were building this DevSecOps pipeline. They were just, well, the government told us to build one, so we're building one. We don't know what it's going to be used for or why it's going to be used. But anyway, so I guess my perspective, I see a lot of this, and I think I personally believe this is like critical to the sector. But there's so many people that are 20, 30 years into their career, and they don't even know why they're doing it. And yet they've been successul. Don't get me wrong. They are successful in this industry, but they have hit their ceiling.
No, I think you're absolutely right? And like just to like keep harping on that situation, they don't know the why, but they're successful in winning programs because they answered the letter of the what was asked for in the contract, and then that's the contract evaluator doesn't actually know the technical solution, so they're not even looking for a why. They're just like, did they answer the questions that I put forward?
Yes.
And it just creates this like terrible
sometimes the
self-licking ice cream cone, right?
Yeah. Sometimes the contract evaluator is not even part of the mission, right? Like it's just a separate team, separate people, possibly even a separate organization that is evaluating this proposal, and so they're not thinking about their why. They're thinking about the what, because that's what they can think about. I mean, it's not like, but I'll say that, John, when I was working on proposals with you, that is something that I took away from our interactions, is that that getting to that why is essential. Getting to the actual no shit why, like why is this important, is the upfront like message, and then you get to the what later. But that, I think that came up a number of times, and it's just a really important concept. Is you have to start with why. I now do that in every PowerPoint as well. Like PowerPoints have to be like not give me a technical diagram or an OV1 up front. I mean, an OV1 can kind of tell you why, but it's mostly what. So start with the why. Like, what is, what's your purpose? But yeah,
I mean,
no, I think it's hard.
I think I became a broken record of my big why question of people is, why are we different, or what differentiates us? Like, why choose us versus anybody else? And if you can't tell me why us, then we're going to lose this.
Yep.
And if anybody should be able to say why us, it should be us. We should know why we're the best.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
And the answer to that can't be super generic, right? It can't just be like, why us? Because we're the best.
Right.
Like,
we're really good.
That's not an answer.
That is literally what, like, his first chapter is like. When you ask most people why, they're like, well, we are the smartest. We have the best people. We are the most innovative. And his whole like first couple chapters all like, that's total garbage. Like, none of that is a why us. Because if I go ask your competitor, they will say the exact same words to me. And I hit on this with people's like mission statements and their cultures and other things. And it's like, if you tell me your culture is mission first, okay, great. That, it's great that you believe that. But if I go ask every single company out here in the defense contracting sector, they're all going to say, my culture is mission first, and we demonstrate mission first, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, that is not your culture. Why are you like, that's just the industry like claim. Every single company, but that's not culture, man. Like, what the what of your culture is way deeper than just this one word or a couple words of we're mission first or people first, or pick this thing out. But
oh god,
why is your culture the way it is?
Whenever I hear people first, I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure that's what you are, whatever that means.
Well, Brian might be laughing about an inside joke here right now, but it's a cringe moment for me. I'm like, I've worked for a dozen companies, and every single one of them has said these same meaningless terms.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
And it's like, and it's almost to the point where it's like people are afraid to say something different.
Yes.
Right. It's like, oh well, if I don't say it people first, then like nobody's going to want to work with me. It's like,
maybe
that's
I'm not
true.
People first.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's something what I was talking about. Like, just creating a company. It's like, what's the incentive to bring people there? It's like, well, if I'm hiring you, I'm like, well, we put people first. It's like, what is your company? Like, is this a a care home?
Maybe it's right, exactly. Maybe it's not a lie.
People first.
Maybe they do, but honestly, you can't actually do that. A company can't put people first. They're a company. They have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders, and so you are not going to be able to do that. You have to put your shareholders
get off your old G. Come on.
But it's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay. So there is one company.
I do think the world has changed a little bit since the Jack Welch days. Shareholders are no longer first. Yes, we have a duty to return profits to our stockholders.
Sure.
However, if you're not, that cannot be your sole focus anymore. Like there's this title shift of, and I think it hits back to that Apple mission thing of like, it's actually the companies that give the best user experience, both to their employees, to their customers, and user experience could be, I guess, your stockholders if you want to put it in there. But those actually become the most successful companies, and in giving the best user experience, you just happen to make your stockholders extremely rich along the way.
Okay, but I will. Okay, even if people first is, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but even if people first is like the way to boost your stock price or to make money, whatever that means, whatever people first means, you are still doing that to boost your stock price, right? Like you're not going to do something against. You're not going to put your people in front of that. in front of that earnings.
Right. Like to put it differently, right? It's a business doesn't make sense if it does not grow, right? Like if you do not
Yeah.
grow, then you are falling behind and you will
Yeah.
eventually cease to exist, right? So it's not
Yes.
necessarily just a like we need to make profit. It's like no, you need to sustain and grow and support what you have. Like you could have just a purely lifestyle company,
Right.
no outside owners, no
Yep.
nothing else. If everyone is fully bought in and you say, okay, we're all just going to take it off the top. But if you say, if you go into that and then you have zero growth, well, you're actually declining, right? Year
Yeah.
over year.
Right.
And
Yeah. I actually had
eventually you will cease to exist.
I went to this leadership conference over the weekend, and they made that point too of like, if you're not growing, you are dying, and not only do you have to grow, you have to grow faster than the rate of inflation, because most
Yep.
people are
Right.
like, yeah, I stayed at $1 million a year in revenue for 10 years, and it's like, yeah, but you do realize
Shrunk.
you were actually shrinking because the value of the dollar was not
Yeah.
proportional to what you just performed at. And
Yep.
I never even thought about it that way of like, yeah, not only do you
Yeah.
have to grow every year, you have to beat inflation every year just to maintain yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big
100%.
fan of honesty when leadership communicates. So
Mm-hmm.
so like I like leadership who's going to tell it to you straight, but care that you are there and care about your yourself, your family, everything. But anybody who says people first to me, you better be giving everybody ownership of your company, because otherwise it's not us first, right?
Yeah, dude, I
But some
passionately
companies
hate it
do
when
that,
people
right?
say
Like
it.
Kudu. Yeah, like Kudu.
No,
Kudu
it
gives.
just feels like a generic HR term, right? It's like
Yeah,
we're
it
people
is.
first. Damn,
It's
you
awful.
know, it's like
Yeah, but there are companies where the why. I think, like getting back to the why, and some people that we should interview. I think we should interview somebody from Kudu, because I think they have a why down. They kind of like, they do researchy cool things, and people who work there tend to love it. And then the other company is Defense Unicorns. That would be killer
Rob
to
Slaughter.
interview
Yeah.
the CEO. Yeah, because
Yeah, I'd reach out to him actually about having him on. Yeah, we should definitely follow up on that.
Yeah.
absolutely both of those really cool companies. So you want to be a people first company. It's like, how do you turn that into a why? Like rather than just saying it's stupid.
You can turn it into a why, but you better be rewarding, because
But
people
yeah,
need.
to me, well, not even that though. It's like, what does it actually mean to be people first, right? And it's and not even the incentives thing. I think it's like, okay, the why is like, the why is we want to be the best team, right? And because like we
Yeah.
know having the best team means that we're going to create better solutions because we work so well together. Like to me,
Mhm.
like going that route makes more sense. But I don't know.
If the why is internal, I don't know. I wonder what the book would say about this. But if the why is internal, I think it's kind of weird, right? Like if the why is to put quote unquote people first, and say like your people will benefit, not uniformly, but at least all at once and with the same success, and to boost families that like what I don't
It
think
just
that's a
doesn't
why.
feel like it fits. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I should finish reading the book.
Yeah.
Me
I
too.
should read it again. It's one of those
All
books
right,
that you
well,
can go back to.
For any of our listeners, why don't you hit the like, subscribe button if you like the conversation that we're having here. We're going to keep this episode a little short. Maybe hit on just a little bit of why for our podcast, why we're doing the Researching Greatness podcast, and let Joe or Brian pick that one up first, and make sure we have our why down as we wrap up this episode.
I'll take it first. I mean, for me, the why is still, as I look at doing new companies and creating new teams and going after new types of work, the why of this is to learn from other people's experiences and really try and hone my own skills so that the path is a little bit easier going forward.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And conversations like this are another part of that why, right? We're all kind of leaders in companies, right? And we're all trying to figure out where these companies are going and why, what the best why and what we can do to bring everyone up, lift all boats, right? And that's hard. And these conversations help me at least think through those things. And so did the interviews, thinking through and understanding the history of various people and various points in their lives and company growth.
Yeah, would definitely say that's the why here. Giving back to others, sharing our knowledge, sharing our guest knowledge, people doing great things. I want people to see just what you can do, what is out there, and that everyone can have a greater why, greater purpose in their life. People from humble beginnings can get to pretty amazing things, but if you're not like looking back on myself, I just wasn't exposed to what you could become, and I want others to see just the potential that's out there. The last podcast we did, we're trying to bring people into the cybersecurity field from other fields. Just want to show people the light, show people the opportunities that are out there, and that these great people that we're interviewing or people working in great companies doing great things, a lot of them have very small beginnings, and get that why out there of why they're being successful. And not any of them may be the right answer, but learn lessons from all of them. So we will wrap up the Researching Greatness podcast with those comments. Please, again, hit that like or subscribe button, and look forward to having you listening to this podcast be a future guest on one of our episodes.